And I will say one thing about me though is I don't ever see anything as a barrier or a roadblock.
Mm.
I'm like, okay, there's a wall up. I'm going to climb over it. I'll repel over. I will do whatever it takes.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Behind the Franchise. I'm your host, Paul Ehlinger, and I'm super excited today to be joined with Brooke Janousek here. Brooke, thanks for joining the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. Super excited. Maybe if you want to get us started, just give us your quick background, kind of run through your career and kind of what's got you to here. And then I know we've got some really fun topics to jump into about being a fractional versus being down in a specific franchise brand. So if you want to kick us off.
Sure. Gosh, this almost feels like I'm giving a dating profile, like saying who I am. But
I
no,
love long walks on the beach and
yes,
a Cabernet
exactly.
Sauvignon from Napa Valley.
That's right, and also dogs. No, to be on point here, I am the CMO of Garage Experts, which is a franchisor located here in Dallas, Texas. And my career has been a very nice blend of being in an ad agencies to being on the corporate side to running my own fractional CMO consultancy. So I have decades plural experience in marketing, and I'll just leave it at that. But have worked on some really big brands that you all have heard of,
Mhm.
and then I've also worked on some startups and helped them grow into household names. So I'm excited to have that conversation and dive in further today.
Yeah, and I love it too because I feel like you kind of have the trifecta of coverage, right? You've got the big brand, the small brand, you've got supplier side, agency side stuff. Like it's just a really interesting grasp of the entire industry. So I think that's super exciting. And love to, as a founder and a business builder myself, I always like to talk to people who've done that as well. And you did that with the Grow CMO. I'm curious, what inspired you to start that, to build your own business and to do fractional work of that nature?
Yeah, so my story is a little unique, and I like to joke with people that it was never on my bingo card. It was never on my career vision board that I was going to start my own consultancy. It actually happened because I uprooted my life and moved from Omaha, Nebraska, which is where I'm
Yeah.
from, to Dallas, Texas for a job.
Hmm.
And it was a role in franchising. And on paper, it was everything that I ever dreamed of. It was the title that I had aspired to. And I was really excited about it. And very quickly, it became apparent that it was not a good fit. And I started to go through the process in my head of now what?
Yeah.
And I just moved. How do I explain this to people? Of course, I was worrying about all the wrong things. I was worrying about the outside
Sure.
perception.
Yeah.
And I thought I can do anything for a year. It's
Hmm.
time, just get through it. And then I started thinking I can do anything for 9 months. I can do anything for 6 months. And then I was finally like,
The
this
time
isn't
is right. It
the
feels
time
like the
is
time is
right.
right.
Let's do this. And so when I resigned, the CEO asked me if there's anything he could do to keep me. And I said, unfortunately not. And he said, well, I love the work that you're doing. Is there any way that I could retain you as a consultant
Yeah.
to finish out these projects? And light bulbs,
Yeah, I was gonna
sirens,
say just
whatever. Yes, whatever you want to call it, divine intervention. The universe was like, this is what you need to do, Brooke. And
yeah.
so I took it and ran with it. And as I started to tell more and more people that I had resigned, and they started saying, well, are you a free agent? Does that mean that we can hire you? And it just organically grew, no pun intended. And I thought, I can do this. I really can do this. And so I put a little bit of structure around it. I put a website together just very quickly and said, here we go. I'm going to become the Grow CMO, and I'm going to offer fractional CMO services to businesses of all sizes. So, like I said, it was more serendipitous than planned.
Yeah. I feel like it's not a bad thing. Like I
No,
think you have to naturally come into feeling that you can run a business, right? And it's some people just naturally have that personality and some don't, but that doesn't mean they're not qualified or good at what they're doing, right? It's just different like personality or what you think about it.
exactly. And I will say one thing about me though is I don't ever see anything as a barrier or a roadblock. I'm like, okay, there's a wall up. I'm going to climb over it.
Yeah.
I'm going
So
to
there's the CEO mentality.
there yeah,
Yeah.
there is I'll repel over. I will do whatever it takes. And so that was this. I didn't see this as a boundary. I thought this is an opportunity to do something unique, to do something I've never done before, a
Yeah.
challenge. It was definitely a challenge,
I
still
bet.
is. But I see it all as opportunity.
Yeah, no, it makes a ton of sense, and I'm always fascinated by it because I do think fractional CMOs are decently prevalent in franchising. I think you definitely see a few different agencies, a few different consultancies that do it. When you're working across multiple brands like that, like what does that teach you? Like, I think it's just such an interesting purview on the industry. But like, what do
Mhm.
you learn from that as you have access to all these different brands? Whereas a single brand marketer gets lost in their own weeds. They don't have those insights as much. They may have peer groups and whatever, but it's different than actually having access and touch and control, right?
Mhm. It's a great question. So there was several things that I learned from it, and at the end of the day, every business has a lot of similarities,
Yeah,
regardless of the industry,
yeah,
regardless of the size, regardless if you're emerging or established. I feel like everyone kind of has similar problems.
mm,
And it was really nice to be able to have that 30,000 foot view of all these different brands to say, you know what, you're having this problem over here, but guess
yeah,
what? They have the same problem over here, and here's how I helped them solve it.
yeah,
So I saw a lot of process
hmm,
challenges. And it sounds wild to say that, but there's just some fundamentals that need to be in place. And
yeah,
sometimes as you're growing, or maybe you've been around for a long time, you forget those fundamentals. So it's like,
yeah,
okay, we need to put this in place. We need to know, how are we tracking our leads? Is it going into a CRM properly? Do we have line of sight into reporting? Some of those fundamentals just weren't in place, or if they were, maybe they had been doing it wrong for a while and it was time to
sure.
unwind some of that and get it situated. So I think, if you're a CEO listening to this, just know that you're not alone. If you think, oh my gosh, we're the only franchisor or the only brand that's facing this challenge,
Yeah,
I promise you, you're not.
right.
I promise everyone struggles operationally at some point, and
Yeah,
that's part of the growing pains.
yeah, it's my favorite thing is I always think about finding CEOs or leaders that work on brands smaller than mine, brands the next step above me,
Mm-hmm.
brands a few steps above me, because it's like you don't want to forget about what you're doing below. You also want to have some eye line into what you're going to be facing in the next 6 months, right?
Absolutely.
Because to your point, everybody wants to grow and everybody wants to grow
Mhm.
efficiently.
Yeah.
It's the details that come out from
Yes.
underneath that.
You bring up a really good point. Something that I learned in my 20s when I was just navigating becoming a professional
Mm,
is I was given this advice about networking.
hmm,
And normally we're taught you should network up.
yeah,
So, as a 20-year-old or 25-year-old, to exactly what you just said, just network with people that are in the role that you aspire to be. But then
yeah,
also, they said you should network below. So,
hmm,
people that are starting out as well, and then laterally. So,
yeah.
who is in the same position as you? So, you're exactly right. You're doing all the right things.
Yeah. Well, it's because it's like you never know. The person underneath
Exactly.
you may be your boss someday. Like the people right next to you is the powerful group because one day you're all going to be in these elevated roles. And
Mhm.
it's like, it's so much easier to be able to call the CEO when you knew them when they were the associate, you know? And
Right.
it's just growing up to that. You kind of bring up the point around systems. And actually, we just connected before this. Kristen, Massage Lux, we were talking a lot about systems as well. She went from self esteem brands to Massage Lux, obvious scale difference, obvious systems difference. When you're first interacting with a brand from the fractional perspective, what are like the one or two systems that you're like, we need this to grow, that it has to be perfect? What are you like? What are your first intuitions?
Uh, Without a doubt, a CRM. If
Yep.
you don't have a CRM, if you're using Excel spreadsheets, hey, more power to you, but that's not going to get you very far.
Sure. You're saving $100 a month for zero efficiency.
Correct. And I'm not
Yeah.
saying anyone is doing that, but actually, as a fractional CMO, I did encounter entrepreneurs, solopreneurs that were just literally starting up, and they were using spreadsheets. So
Yeah.
again, you have to do what you have to do to bootstrap things, but absolutely, do you have a CRM is my first question. And if you
Yeah.
don't, then either we can't work together until you get one, or I will help you find one
Sure.
for your system, and then I will help you implement
Implement.
it
Yeah.
properly.
No, that makes a ton of sense. And what have been like the rewards and struggles of managing multiple brands, right? I think we kind of talked about some of the high points, right? You get a strategic view, 30,000 foot across industry. What's the struggle there? Like, do you feel like, oh, I wish I could be more hands on ever, or things of that nature?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. I would say the biggest struggle, especially when I was at the height of having as many clients as I did, is the breadth and depth
Yeah.
equation. So
Yeah.
I was more just going across so many clients that I felt like I couldn't really totally dive in and do everything that I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And now as a CMO, I call it as like a full-time W-2 employee, I do get the opportunity to dive in a little deeper. So I think the challenge was shifting my brain. It was almost like I was trained for this because of my ad agency days. As an ad agency ad exec, you do have multiple clients, and so you constantly have to shift your brain from okay, this meeting I'm talking about Disney, now I'm talking about GE, now I'm talking about Bridgestone, and you have to train your brain to switch. So the same thing happened with the Grow CMO. I would be in meetings, and then I'd be like, okay, switch my brain to this brand, now switch my brain to this brand, and it was also a lesson for me, if I can share the takeaway, was boundary setting and time management became extremely important.
Yeah.
And saying, okay, I'm going to allocate this many hours to this client this week and I'm going to stick to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have to set clear boundaries like, okay, today is the day that I'm working on spray net, for example. Tomorrow is the day I'm working on leash. And so I learned a lot through that process.
Yeah, and you touched on it here, right? So transitioning into the W-2 role away from Grow CMO, obviously you get the depth. What other things drew you back into being, more singularly focused on a brand like GarageExperts? What was kind of some of the motivating factors for you?
Yeah, I think a couple of the motivating factors included stability, and
that's a big one. It's nice to have a paycheck every 2 weeks.
Exactly.
I love that.
Exactly. That's just a minor one.
Sure.
I absolutely love the thrill of the chase. I loved finding new clients and signing deals. And the Grow CMO is still thriving under a partner that I brought on. There was a lot of, and I'll be honest, grief around, hey, I'm going back to full-time W-2 employment and I've created this business that I'm so proud of. Yeah. How do I let that go? But knowing that I had a strong partner in Megan that I could bring in to help, fulfill those obligations to the clients and continue the next chapter of the Grow CMO made it easier for me to make the transition. And I'm at a point in my life where, hey, I've proven to myself I can build a business. And now it's time to go back to, I wanted stability. I wanted to lead a team in person again. Yeah. And I'm an extrovert. I thrive on being in the office, being able to collaborate in person, brainstorm in person, solve problems in person. And so that was also a big draw. And then finally, GarageExperts and the other brand I'm over, which is Versatile High Performance Coatings, are rapidly growing. That was something that is very intriguing to me, and coming in at a point where this is really going to take off and I can heavily influence it was a major factor in my decision.
Yeah, it's you bring up like a really important point, I think, and it's something I actually struggle with and think about a lot, which is I've been lucky enough to kind of be my own boss for a lot of years, and I think about it all the time. Like, could I work in a role where I'm like somebody else's W-2, right? And it's I could see how it could feel like a loss of identity almost, right? Where like you have to go from one to the other. Mm-hmm. How do you and having a C-suite role helps, but like, how do you maintain that agency, right? To still feel like, Brooke is coming out in this, right? Like, it might not be Brooke's company, but it's a vision of Brooke's company that's being achieved. Like, how do you kind of think about that or execute on that? / do you think about that at all?
I don't know that I think about it in that way. So it's a good question, but instinctively, like when you were asking me the question, the word boundaries came up again. And I think there's still an importance of setting boundaries to say, this is what is achievable and realistic in this quarter. This is what my team can realistically do this quarter. And it is up to me to set those boundaries, set those expectations of the CEO to say, I hear what you're saying and I know that it is important, but this is what's realistic. Sure. And that's important to me, to have that mutual respect, to be able to say those things and push back, but also to have that alignment of, okay, these are the numbers, these are the goals that we need to achieve. And then for me to say, yeah, that's actually reasonable, or no, you're totally, I appreciate the visionariness, but or the visionary side of you, but I need to tamper that a little bit.
Yeah. I feel that. I think I also have that same thing, right? You got to kind of self-check and realize execution matters, right? Mm-hmm. How do you think about translating, CEO's vision down to your team, right? Because you are kind of the filter for the marketing team.
Mhm.
When you start to deliver those messages, what are you doing to resonate with your team more effectively, or to encourage, or push them to kind of reach those goals that, may be stretchy?
Yeah. I think every good leader has a responsibility to explain the why.
Mm,
And so, yes, the CEO should be a visionary and should have these wild ideas because they want the business to grow. And this is what they, have set forth as the vision for the company. And then to your point, I need to translate that to my team, but I need to, instead of just say, hey, he wants XYZ by Monday.
hmm
Guess what? This is the why behind it. This is what it's going to do for the business. This is
hmm
how it's going to grow the business. But then, just as importantly, here's your role in that, and
Yeah.
helping them understand that this is not just a task for you to do. You understand the why, and you have an integral part in moving that forward. And so now they feel ownership, they feel excited, they don't see it as a daunting task anymore. It's like, yeah, I'm going to
It's
affect
attainable.
change.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to do that. And I am good at motivating and galvanizing a team into action. And so if they understand the why, it makes them a lot more likely to spring into action.
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. And maybe diving a little more in. So, you've worked with extremely big brands, you've worked kind of across scale and all this stuff. You join Garage Experts, and you guys are right around 80, 85, correct? I think.
Correct.
Um, what's it like kind of coming into an emerging brand like that, right? I'm sure systems probably weren't all the way built out, right? Like, why did you want to come down into the merging level? Like, did you consider trying to get into a larger brand? What do you love about the scale you're at currently?
Yes, I did consider a larger brand, but there is just something that calls me back always to the emerging side
Yeah.
of things. From even the clients that I served at Grow CMO, my whole life, I've sort of been in this mid market size, on the client side, I should say, mid
Mhm.
market size. And I love that tipping point where it's like, I can see we are so close. And it's almost like the foundation has been laid and we just need to do a couple more things to get us over that hump. And
Yeah.
it is so, I want to say, exhilarating to see that just a couple small changes can really make the difference to send
Yeah.
us on that growth trajectory. And so for that, that was appealing to me, and I've done it before. And so
Yeah.
that makes it comfortable. And hey, let's be honest, I like to achieve. Who doesn't? And so I was like,
I
hey,
like collecting some wins,
yeah,
sue me.
it's not I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but I
Right.
like, I know there's a roadmap. And
Yeah.
I'm not the only person that was hired during this time period. We also hired a new president of the
Okay,
brand,
interesting.
and we hired a CFO. So all three of us were brought on with relatively within the like same 6 month time period. I was first, and then the president, and then the CFO. So all of these new perspectives have come into play. And
It's
to your
nice that
point,
they were at such a short time frame. I have to imagine that's
yes,
super helpful.
it has been. And so
Yeah.
while, yes, we're collectively causing a little bit of
Disruption? I can
disruption,
only imagine.
but it's very good and very necessary.
Yeah.
And I want to applaud our CEO for having that foresight to say, hey, these are the necessary hires to get us to that next point, and I'm trusting you all to come in with your expertise
Yeah.
to disrupt appropriately
Yep.
and get us to the next level.
I think it's like a lot of self awareness, right? Because I do think this like 70 to 100 unit number is a really difficult number, right? Because very few brands actually get above that 100 number, and very few brands get above it sustainably. It's
Right.
and that's a really tough mixture. As you think about taking Garage Experts to that next level, right? Taking them from I think it's 83. Is it 83?
It's 83 to be precise. I do have
Okay.
a sticky note. It is 83.
I was going to say, I
Yeah.
thought it was 83, but I want to say the wrong number. So 83. How do we get to 150, right? Like,
Mhm.
how are you positioning the brand differently as you go from this scale to that scale? From the marketing perspective, what stays the same? What are you trying to change to get there?
Yeah, that you hit the nail on the head. We have those goals mapped out. We use EOS. So we have our 1 year target and our 1 year picture and our 3 year targets. We have those milestones that we want to achieve. And one of the things that it started with was I said, have we ever truly done research on our ideal franchisee profile. Like, let's understand who the total addressable market is, the sizable addressable market, and get that persona really dialed in. So we did that research right out of the gate. We identified it. And then it was a matter of changing messaging to address that audience. So we did that. And then putting the systems in place. So we implemented a new CRM, coming full circle here.
There we go. We got it.
Go.
System is in place.
The system is in place. And then getting our nurture campaigns dialed in with that messaging, addressing the needs and the desires of that audience. So those were kind of some fundamental changes that we made. And then investing in marketing. There was, I did triple the budget, but we have triple the goal of leads and sales that we needed to do. So
1-to-1 feels good, honestly,
Yes. And again, thank you to Mike for approving that budget.
Shout out, Mike.
Yes. But, again, that's where that mutual respect comes in, and setting the boundaries and saying, you want me to do this. Okay, but I'm going to need this to achieve that.
You're not a magic maker, If you could go 3-to-1 on a budget, you would be a Fortune 10 CMO somewhere.
Exactly. But there is such a thing as paced growth and being realistic of how many units can we sell this year, and then getting aligned with our sales team. So I work very closely with Nick and Michael every day. Like, tell me how the leads are performing. What lead source do I need to tweak a little bit? And we can even see through HubSpot, I can see on the nurture campaigns, we have 5 emails that go out as soon as a lead comes in. The 4th one, not converting at all. I'm like, all of them convert except the 4th one. Great. I'm going to go in and tweak that message.
Change it.
So there's a lot of optimization that's happening too. Again, these are kind of fundamentals that just needed to happen and be put in place.
I'm actually curious. This is a question I was just thinking as you were talking here. I think specifically marketers, once they get up to the CMO role, we've talked to a lot on the show even where they can be their own customer every day, every week, right? Like, I can go get a massage. I can go eat at this restaurant. I can go to this gym. A little harder to do in the context of what you're working, right? Like, it's not an everyday product or service you're using. How do you continue to be one with the customer? How do you continue to embrace that and understand them, to the extent that you obviously need to?
Great question. If you go to my LinkedIn profile, you will see that I worked for a competitor. And when I was employed by that competitor, I did have my garage done by them. So I can say that I have been a customer at some point. But moving forward now, I'm not a homeowner at the time or currently, so I can't be a customer right now. But I am doing still a lot of research. I do a lot of, I read the customer reviews, to be honest. We're using Podium to solicit reviews. So I'm reading all of those reviews. I want to have a pulse on what people are saying so I can say, okay, this is what they're reacting to. This is what they really like. If you can't tell, I'm a huge research person. Customer research is critical. And so I like to stay on top of that, listening to calls. So I hear what people are asking. I understand what is the mindset of the consumer, what types of things are they asking for, and then also listening to the franchisees. They're the first line of defense.
They're right there,
They're right there. So if they're asking for, hey, we don't have a cabinet brochure, we need a cabinet brochure, obviously customers want to see our cabinets. So things like that, I really try and stay up on. And then I just doing competitive research too, just going and looking at what our competitors are doing and the jobs they're completing and their photos they're posting help me as well.
It makes a ton of sense. And bridging a little bit into the concept of building a brand, right? And kind of evolving a brand. I view them, they're very living and breathing. People have emotional, guttural reactions to them. I think in your space, like, you're in people's homes. That's a very sensitive kind of topic. It's lasting, it's effectual. Like, how do you go about building that emotional connection through your marketing, through your messaging and your positioning?
Back in my I'm telling you, everything I learned in my 20s is coming around. But at the ad agency, when I worked at Bailey Lauerman, we dove so deeply into consumer insights. And one mantra that just has stuck with me forever is ask the customer, they will tell you what to do. And so understanding the customer why does somebody want their garage renovated? Is it because they have 4 kids and their stuff is everywhere and it needs to be organized? Is it because they want to entertain? Maybe they're one of 8 children. I'll give an example. My friend Franny, she's one of 8 children and she hosts Thanksgiving and Christmas every
She
year.
needs a space.
She needs a space. And so they redid their garage so understanding that why and being like, okay, now when we sit down and we design that garage, it's for entertainment in mind. Or somebody wants a home gym. So understanding all of those whys really kind of helps, and that leads to the emotional aspect of the branding piece. So there's an emotional and rational side of the brand. The emotional side is why. Like, why are you doing this? You obviously want to upgrade for some reason, but then rationally, why are we the best? We use the best products, things like that. So that's kind of the push and pull, the art and science of it.
Yeah.
So really understanding that and coaching our franchisees to get to that customer. Why are we here? What is your dream for this space?
Yeah. Yeah. It is interesting because it is a large project, right? It's like it may be one of the larger home improvement projects somebody undergoes. So it is a large decision, and it makes a ton of sense. I love the approach of like the why and then the rationale, right? It's like, this is why we do it. That's why we're the best at it.
Right. And also we're competing against other home improvement projects. So they might be deciding it's the garage
we've got
or
that
landscaping.
Bathroom, we've got,
Oh, we're always going to lose to the bathroom, I think.
Yeah, that's fair, actually.
I'm just kidding.
That's
fair. Or the kitchen. I think the kitchen's always going to win out.
Kitchen is numero uno. That makes sense,
yes.
right? Where the food is, we should be.
Yes.
The garage one is interesting, though, I guess. I love that idea because we used to celebrate our family Christmases in my grandparents' garage, and it's like I've got exceedingly fond memories of that.
Yeah. And now, I mean, you can some of these photos I see coming out of our franchisees, there's beautiful spaces, and there's hobbyists out there that want to display their cars. I mean, there's so many reasons, and you can if you get to that emotional reason why they're doing it, there should be no reason why you don't close that sale.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. And you've touched on this through this answer a little bit, but I love talking to marketers because I think really great marketers can balance the creative and they can balance the performance metrics, right? And I think you'll see some that are one direction and it's like, that's great for some things. You'll see others that are another direction. It's great for some things. It's really hard to find people that balance both of those. And listening to you talk, it really feels like you do that well. How do you think about that? How do you go about your day-to-day balancing that to where we're still a creative brand, we're still intriguing, but we're also getting the results we want to see?
Yeah, that is a constant push and pull between myself and then the creative team. And either, even here and at previous employers or even with clients, everybody wants that to, this conceptual fun idea. And I'm like, but at the end of the day, we have to generate a lead. And so there is a balance. And so I'm always saying, okay, what's the call to action? How you can have this really cool headline that's creative, that's, is a scroll stopping headline. But at the end of the day, the litmus test is, will that convert to a lead? Will that get somebody to book an appointment? And so that's kind of the challenge that I put forth, and the hat that I always put on when I'm reviewing creative is, okay, is it on brand? Is there something compelling? Is there like that emotional, pull that we're getting? But then at the end of the day, are we asking them to do something?
Yeah.
And there is also the balance of, and I coach our franchisees on this too, that some of brand building has a place. You can do the TV spots that maybe, are doing a little bit more of that emotional pull, but there's still going to be a phone number to call, and so there's still got to be something there. And so that is my job. That is a CMO's job, is to balance that, because we are measured on numbers. Like, did we generate revenue? Did we generate leads? Did things convert? Those things are real KPIs. And I'm not going to get, I'm not going to, I guess, get good marks on my performance review if it's like, oh, people like our stuff, bro.
Yeah.
Okay, sure they do, but did they actually, did it generate sales? That's at the end of the day what we have to do.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. And I think actually building off of this and also circling back to a previous conversation, you have a lot of internal change happening, like a new president, CMO, CFO. That's a lot of change. And you all are going to have your perspectives and what you're prioritizing and what you're pushing. Obviously, they're centralized around sales and growth and common metrics. But fighting for franchisee attention and time, I imagine they're being strained right now a bit as well, right? And so how do you think about maintaining that brand consistency and educating and helping your franchisee grow their marketing capabilities and skills while they're also probably getting pulled all these different directions?
Yeah. So marketing is a shared resource between both of the brands here. And that is one thing that I'm really excited to bring to the franchisees is before they didn't have maybe this resource to push out content to them that was on brand, that was saying the same thing. I mean, we've come in and said, okay, these are the three things that we're always going to communicate to customers. Okay, great. Now, as we're producing ads for them and we're producing social posts for them, I make sure it hits those three things.
Yeah.
And really communicating to the franchisees, guess what? You don't have to worry about this anymore. It's done for you. Come ask us for help. We will produce whatever you want according to these things that we've deemed to be the three most compelling things our audience wants to hear. And so that's the beauty of a franchise system is, hey, you come into the system and from a marketing perspective, it's taken care of. We've established the brand. We will make sure it's being consistent, run anything past us that you want to produce on your own, but here are the guidelines. And quite frankly, they've been thirsty and hungry for it. And so I think they're really happy and receptive. Exactly. And they're receptive to the change because they see the vision and they know, hey, this is going to help me grow.
Yeah. I mean, that also speaks a lot towards the leadership, right? Like getting a lot of people bought into that is really hard. Moments of change are really difficult to overcome. So that's exciting to hear. And kind of a final question before moving on to our kind of quick hitting question. How much are you leveraging that franchisee insight, right? We talked about it a little before. I think franchising is such a unique thing because you have these national brands, but you do have these local pockets of like, they own the business, they've got an opinion, they also want to grow because it's their money they're trying to make, right? And it can lead to those disagreements and different ideologies on how to affect the brand. Like, how do you enable while still maintaining brand guidelines, I guess is a question I like to ask.
Yeah, that's a good question. One of the first things I did when I started here was do research with the franchisees. So we did research of customers who purchased from us, customers who had an estimate, didn't purchase, just Gen Pop, and then franchisees. So first and foremost, gaining their trust. Hey, you're going to be heard. Like, I'm asking you these questions. And then now, not only did I ask you these questions, but the answers you provided us are now coming to fruition.
Here's this initiative from that. Yeah,
exactly. So that is super important, communicating with them. And then, yes, you're right. They are the local experts. They're the boots on the ground. They know what happens in Nashville. I'm not in Nashville. I don't know. And so I'm going to take their word as, hey, it's a little different down here, or hey, this nuance needs to change. Absolutely. I will take that into consideration and all of that. And they have some great ideas. Again, they're the ones that are interacting with the customers. I'll give a shout out to Paul Schultes, our franchisee in Fresno. He had a great idea for something that he wanted created. He's like, I'm just going to do this, for a sales piece that I want to leave behind. And I said, Paul, this is amazing. I want this done for the whole system. And so those are the things where this is great. I see this as a worthy tool for everybody to use. So let's go ahead and mass produce it and then put it out to the system. So absolutely leveraging their insights. And then we have a advisory council, a franchise advisory council that we do bounce things off of. We're going to print on a publication here this week, actually. And so I sent it to them before it went out to the entire system to say, hey, does this, check all the boxes? Hey, this is the research. This is what I heard from you. This is where it's incorporated.
Are we aligned still? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So that's important. That back and forth feedback is very important.
Yeah. And I feel like just letting it be known, like, hey, this came from a franchisee and we're using it everywhere. People feel enabled. They feel empowered to do the same thing, right?
Yes.
Awesome. So grinding into our final section, we call it quick hitters, 10, 15-second responses. First thing that comes to mind. How does that sound?
Okay, that sounds great. I'm ready.
All right. One marketing truth you've found to be universal.
The customers. Do I want to say the customer is always right? I think it kind of goes back. Well, ask the customer. They'll tell you what to do. That's it.
We'll take it. Favorite project you've worked on to date?
Oh my gosh. Ever?
You've touched so many brands. I was like, this is going to be a really interesting question.
Ever. I will have to say, when I was at Bailey Lauerman, we did a TV spot for Disney that was helping people understand that Disney could be affordable. And
Okay.
that was a big challenge, and that was my first real TV production, and so that was probably, for those reasons, my favorite one ever.
Feels real palpable when you watch it on TV.
Yes,
Then.
yes.
Maybe you linked, but biggest aha moment, maybe biggest, whoa, as a CMO that you've experienced.
These are tough. The biggest aha. I guess just good CRM data is the key to all decisions.
Little did you know your life would boil down to CRM data, but here we are.
I know.
I feel that one viscerally.
Yes.
One franchise brand that you're not currently managed or have managed recently that you admire for their marketing.
This is going to be so random for me to say it, but the UPS store.
Okay, I love that answer.
Okay, and here's why. Because there's so much more than just shipping out stuff. They've really truly positioned themselves as your partner for a small business. So you can go in there, there's notaries in there, you can have your PO box in there, you can do all the printing, and you can have presentations produced. So I just really admire the marketing campaigns that they've done around that, and how they're positioning themselves as your partner in small business.
I've never thought about it like that, but it makes me think of like American Express or MasterCard, right? Where they're like, we are your small business partner. Like,
Yes.
we do everything. That's
Yes.
a good point. And then a fun one I always like to ask, what's something people might not know about you?
That I took trapeze lessons last year.
Trapeze lessons? Okay,
Yes.
An additional 20 seconds to this.
Okay.
Why and how was it?
It was amazing. This is kind of like a philosophical thing, but the climb was much harder than the descent.
Yeah.
So it was so scary to climb that ladder, but once I got up there, it was so exhilarating and so much fun. But to get up there, you had to really talk to yourself and be like, this climb is difficult, but I can do this.
Yeah, you're just like, next step.
Yes. And I did it just for fun. I just thought this is going to be something that's super fun and exhilarating, not really anticipating how scary that climb was going to be. But
I love that.
It's a great metaphor.
Here we go. Yeah. And then final portion, I always like to give you the podium. Sell what you want to sell. Talk about what you want to talk about. Where can they find you? Where can they find your brands? Do what you got to do.
Yeah, I am extremely active on LinkedIn. So I would love it if you went and connected with me on LinkedIn, followed me. I post almost every day. I do videos on Fridays where I talk about professional and personal growth. And so you can find everything there. If you want to become a client of the Grow CMO, you can DM me there. And if you want to purchase a franchise for Garage Experts, please, send me a DM there, and I will introduce you to our lovely franchise development team here at Garage Experts.
And I can attest, I reached out to you over LinkedIn. So,
you did.
And we got all the way here. So results come out of LinkedIn outreach,
Yes, absolutely.
So with that, Brooke, thank you so much for joining the show today. It's been a pleasure. Loved learning from you. So thank you for your time.
I've had the best time. Thank you.
Awesome. And for everybody else, thank you for listening to another episode of Behind the Franchise. Thanks for your time, and we hope to have you on the next one, guys. Talk to you later.